Salvete mihi nomen est, Stella, et hoc est Batgirl the Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast, episode 262 for July MMXXV. Batgirl the Oracle is brought to you by MileHighComics.com, your new and collectible comic book store. Mile High Comics has an inventory of over 5 million comics from the gold, silver, bronze, and modern age, and over 100,000 trade paperbacks. If you're not into the vintage stock, Mile High Comics also has a subscription service called the New Issue Comics Express, offering a discounted price for comics ready to hit the shelves. So if you're looking for vintage back issues or a great modern subscription service, be sure to check out milehighcomics.com. Well, I have returned both from Cape Cod and my adventures with Harry and also Latin camp, as some people at the camp had styled it. I was just calling it a workshop, which is how it was advertised, certainly. And both were a lot of fun. I got to see fireworks shot off of the Bodge in the Cape, and I give it 10 out of 10. Harry's father was a little more reserved on it and thought maybe it wasn't as good as other years. But since I have no room for comparison, I really enjoyed it, thought it was really well done. And as you would expect, the crowds returning were nuts, and also people trying to drive through the crowds was a bit of an insane idea. And of course, we got up to some hijinks. I think that you can always expect me to bring hijinks and also potentially make you do things that you might not ordinarily do yourself. In this case, Harry and I were on the hunt for, as we normally are, crabs. And if you recall, I've been trying to find crabs every time I've gone up there and really have had not much luck. I did see something, was it last summer, I guess? Some little crabs. But this one, I just wanted, some significant crabs. And I actually did I saw some spider crabs. I held those, which made me feel a little bit uncomfortable because they're not very attractive looking. And how I was holding it, their legs are just so long that's kind of scrabbling at my wrist, and I didn't like it as much. And we saw a couple other different species of crabs as we were kayaking around. I saw a carcass of a blue crab, but did not find a blue crab because I think that would be pretty amazing to find one of those and hold them because they seem pretty significant. We did find a whole horseshoe crab. I couldn't tell if it was dead or just not moving, it was taking a rest. I did not pick that one up because it was in the water as we were moving, but that was pretty exciting. So I would say that was a lot of fun. We watched lots of movies, some of which were good, some of which were not good. Nosferatu we watched, and Jurassic Park, the new one. We went to go see that. I made Harry watch K-pop Demon Hunters, which I'll talk about later. And trying to think of Make It Happen, which I did not care for, and I like dance films, but his girlfriend's in there, so that's why we watched it. And I made him watch one of my favorites, Cruel Intentions, which he didn't care for as much, and Silent Hill and Jaws, since it was, I think it's 50th anniversary. So yeah, a lot went down. I had high hopes, and I was super excited to see the Dickinson Museum, Emily Dickinson and her family, at Amherst College. But the day we were slated to go, it was not open. It's not open on Monday. So I guess that's just a delayed adventure. And we also went to, me, Harry, and the mayor went to Provincetown, aka P Town. And I really enjoyed that place. We went on a dune tour where we're actually in SUV and going through the dunes and checking out dune shacks where different artists would be holed up for a little bit and working on their plays, like Tennessee Williams or Eugene O'Neill, or visual artists as well. So that was lovely. And I'm trying to think if I'm leaving anything out. There's definitely every day we seemed to have done something. And this was my longest trip there because I had really had gone for maybe 4 days or so at max. And I thought there's just always a lot of stuff I want to do and it's not enough. So I went for basically a week and still it didn't seem like there was enough to do there because at Provincetown apparently you can go on a whale tour. And I've not seen a whale except in I suppose an aquarium. So that's something that I would also like to do. And yeah, then I flew back. And the day I got back, I basically unpacked and then repacked because I was going to go to Dickinson College for a Latin workshop where we were going to translate book four of Virgil's Georgics, which is all about bees and beekeeping. And it was just sort of how long form translation and I think keeping your tools sharp and also being able to discuss things and ask questions with other people. And a visiting professor was the one who had recently written a commentary on it for the Dickinson commentaries. So she was there to also talk us through different things. And that was fun. So the groups are divided up into three. There's the flying fishes, who are people that are only online, not in person. There are the sharks that are, I guess, super dedicated to grammar and really want to do deep dives into things. And then dolphins, which are a little bit laid back. So I went to the sharks just because I do love grammar and I do want to understand sentence structures if something is a bit complicated. And it was, yeah, it was pretty intense. I would say the first day, I wondered if I should have been there. I just felt really dumb because the woman next to me at one point had said, well, in the Hesiod tradition. And I thought, oh my gosh, where am I? Do I belong here? But it sort of, I think, leveled out after that. I think I was one of the few, if maybe the only person who only has an undergraduate degree in classics and not a master's, since my master's in education. And a lot of these people have masters in classics. So they are far more well read and they've done more Greek study as well as, have these secondary sources that are in other languages. So I sort of forgave myself for any lack of knowledge I may have and was or had and just kind of did my own thing. And I think it got better throughout the week because I was able to also point out different things that I was noticing and connect it to other works of literature. So yeah, it turned out to be fun. There were a couple kind of strange moments from one person in particular, but I get yeah, I shan't share that because it just gets into the nitty gritty of Latin. But I was super confused and went to other people. I was like, "Did you understand this?" And they're like, "No, no, I did not." So it yeah, it worked out in the end. Try not to second guess yourself, I think, too much. And also comparison is the thief of joy, as they say. So yeah, I think I would come back. I think socially, because I was just kind of hanging out on my own. I think it's better probably after the first year because you don't know anyone your first year. So coming back again and then maybe knowing someone, and it takes me a little while, to warm up to people. So by the end of the week, I was kind of ready to socialize a bit more. So next year, I think I would like to return, but it depends, I think, on what they plan on translating. Yeah, because there's some things that I might not feel competent to do, which is it's good to step out and challenge yourself. But also if it's, I don't know, something that's really intense and I'm just going to stress out over it, then maybe I'll skip it. But yeah, so I enjoyed that. And then I got back and I was just kind of wiped because it was 2 weeks of just like intensity, either social intensity or cognitive intensity. And I just have been relaxing and here we are. Yeah, so this episode is kind of funny because we're really leading into, I mean, literally this birds of prey issue that I do, it ends with next 1 year later. And of course, you know what that means. It's infinite crisis. And so I kind of need to decide what I want to do about that and the things that come after that. And I have some Cassandra stuff to kind of wrap up. So I feel like after this, I'll do Cass and finish her series. Need to do research to figure out where that miniseries that people hate falls into continuity. And then come back and really it'll just be, yeah, a downward slope, I guess, to the end of Birds of Prey. So yeah, with certain side gaps, I guess, or side stories. But yeah, I do have actually a quickie, which I haven't had in a while, but I was just noticing there were a couple that were popping up on my document. And this one is Nightwing 114 Cowboys and Indians from November 2005, so a bit behind where I actually am. The publisher synopsis says Nightwing's long and winding road has landed him under Deathstroke's thumb in the most vicious collection of villains ever assembled. Now it's time for Dick Grayson to take matters into his own hands. But if he's trading Deathstroke's loyalty for Lex Luthor's, is his life getting any better? Dick, as Renegade, is hanging out with Ravager. And I think some people are thinking he might be a villain at this point, but he's really deeply undercover. Oracle, this is why I'm talking about it. Oracle actually gets a ping while she's on the Airy jet that someone is using one of her trace protocols for a venom component, and only Bruce, Tim, and Dick know about it. And so it kind of raises red flags. And then later, Arsenal reports to her that she was right to be concerned. And they get into kind of a tussle, and he punches Arsenal and tells him, don't get up. But I've sort of missed, I can't recall the last Nightwing that I had read. So it was a bit of a shock to pull that up and see him in a red costume and it not being New 52. But there you go with that. So, yes, I am just doing Birds of Prey 91 today, which is subtitled Donor. And April 2006 is its cover date. So, we really are, well, we're in the middle of Infinite Crisis, to be honest. It's ongoing at the moment. So, I've seen in my document some other places that BAPS pops up. So, I just need to get I think a good collection, and then also figure out probably what co-host I would like to come on to talk about Infinite Crisis. But I'm just going to talk about this one for right now. So, writer Jim Alexander, penciler Brad Walker, inker Jimmy Palmiotti, colors Hi-Fi Design. And the synopsis is the birds of prey are now operating in Metropolis. Huntress ends up in a fracas with members of the new Royal Flush Gang, just two of them. It seems they have kidnapped a boy who is intended to be an organ donor for the criminal Joseph Bull. The gang members take off with the kid, and Huntress pursues them. Zinda and Black Canary join the chase. Canary gets the kid, and the kid tells her he wants to be a donor for Bull. They take him to the hospital where he donates his kidney. And should also say that nobody wants this man to live. They want him to die, I guess, of natural causes because of his criminal empire. Both the good guys want him to die as well as the bad guys so that they can divide up what he has and things like that. Here is the cover, which I don't care for. It's not necessarily a bad cover, but I guess I just don't like the style of it. And it makes the story seem way more intriguing, I think, than it actually is. You do have a Carolyn Knows floating Babs head, and you have Huntress. So you have the main players. And then you have this person back here who looks like a man, even though he is like a teenager. And he's got this blindfold, so it makes it seem like a really intense hostage situation. We have body snatchers as the title down there. So it leads us to think that this is going to be an intense story. And I would say that it's not as intense as the cover makes out to be. Now, on the surface, I didn't care much for this issue. Self-contained stories, I think, walk the razor's edge of being either throwaway or deeply impactful. And I think that this one leans to the former. We've already dealt with Huntress's come to Jesus moment about life, the value of life and her vigilante style. So it's really only redundant here. And it's a little annoying how Oracle would keep certain details to herself about the mission. I feel like we're past that now, especially in terms of her and Huntress's relationship. On the other hand, this is a story about agency and medical ethics. So that's an interesting theme right there. It's not until the end that people finally let Todd, who spells his name with one D for some reason, speak about what he wants and that he would like to do something good with his life and donate a kidney, even if the person getting that kidney is a bad person. The ethics here revolve around what a life is worth and whether anyone should have a say in who is allowed to get an organ. And I know that these sorts of things happen on dramas and they happen in real life as well. So it's interesting to see it in a comic. Babs has complicated feelings towards the whole thing because she was there once in a hospital bed, but she uses this moment to have Bull recognize that this is a second chance for him and that he should do the right thing this go around. And we also find out that people always ask Huntress whether she's a nurse or even real, which, she says, not a day go by, not a day goes by that someone doesn't ask me that, which is interesting because it's the first time I was reading it that people were asking her that. So, yes, I think that it's an okay issue. As I said, I wasn't super excited or intrigued by it, but if you get underneath the surface, I think it does talk about some important things. And it's just leading us, I think, to there was just a gap of time, I guess, that needed to be filled before we have this 1 year later. So there you go. So very quick review, but those are my thoughts on this. I'm going to give it 7.5 out of 10 birds. Don't have any listener emails, but I do have a comment from the previous episode on YouTube, in particular, part two from Donovan. He says the explanation for the Amanda Waller comment, which that was a question I had about. I'm not sure what Babs is talking about Amanda Waller. Is that in the DC-wide crossover Absolute Power, Waller managed to take away the DC superheroes' powers and transfer them to Amazo robots. When the heroes defeated her, some characters had their powers switched, and that's currently an ongoing situation in the comic. Wow. Or comics, I guess. That's kind of an interesting way to switch up the power structure and power dynamics within the DCU is to have, or no, Superman maybe only be fast, and then Flash is shooting people with his red eye laser beams. So there you go. Remember, you can always write into Batgirl to Oracle at gmail.com or post on those YouTube's links and definitely I read them out here and I comment on them. Okay, well, going to take a brief respite, and when I come back, I will cover Batgirl Volume 6, Number 9, and Birds of Prey Volume 5, Number 20. But first, it is Zaius's Radio Hour featuring Running with the Wolves by Aurora. See you soon.